What's up, everybody? It's Al. It's week 14 and I have a head-to-head battle, a cage match for this week. We took a week off last time for Thanksgiving week. Wasn't going to ask people to come in here on Wednesday right before everybody leaves town to be with their family, but we're bringing it back for week 14 and I have a special guest, Mike Leone, aka Two Hats One Mike from DailyRoto. One of the founders over at DailyRoto is going to come in here and challenge me. He is part of the brains behind the projections over there at DailyRoto. They do a fantastic job. I've talked about them ad nauseum on this channel and most of the videos. You guys know that there's a link to sign up right down below in the description if you want to go check the site out and browse around. But in terms of this video, if you're new to the channel and you're new to this video and you wanted to kind of check it out, welcome. I appreciate you being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notifications bell because I do come out with a ton of content throughout the week. But this video is different from any other video that I do, this head-to-head battle, these cage matches. You play head-to-heads on Draftkings, you likely have some overlap with a lot of the players that you're playing against. Probably have the one or two of the same stud players. You probably have one or two of the same value players, which means that at most there's 5 spots that are unique on your lineups and probably less than that, 2v2, 3v3. And that 9-player lineup that we build is kind of different than, most other lineups are throughout the week. But I make sure that with these cage matches, we do a draft using the salaries on DraftKings so that there can't be any overlap. And the way that we're going to do this one is no different. So let me bring in Mike. He has chosen, every one of these we also play for a charity or something. The guest always decides. Mike has chosen to play for $250. And the winner will have the loser donate to a charity of their choice. My charity, as always, is going to be No Kid Hungry. Mike is going to be playing for CARR, Caring Friends and Mentors, which provides kind of big brother help, mentors, friends for people that are having some mental health issues. And so it helps them get the funding for that. Another great charity. I'll show you guys that in just a second. And we'll get a link to that down below in the description as well if you'd like to donate to either one of these great charities. But let me bring in Mike and say hi. Mike, how's it going, man?
It's going well. Excited to be on the cage match. I've got the overlap beard going, but I figured I'd keep it for the cage match. It seemed to suit the occasion well.
It's a little more gritty. I understand it. You want to come in here, you don't want to be baby faced. You're ready to battle, you're ready to fight.
I feel like mankind. I'm ready.
You're ready. All right, well, I'll try and throw you off the top of this cage after we get into it, but why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and find your work throughout the industry?
Yeah, on Twitter you can find me at 2hats1mike, and as you said, I do a lot of the projections work and content work over at dailyroto.com, covering DFS for all sports. I'm mainly involved in NFL, NBA, and MLB, but also we did college football projections this year. So we've got it all covered, and we're also looking to make sportsgrid.com, we're all under the Sports Grid family, a really good destination for those of you who are into sports betting. So those are the main areas you can find me.
Awesome. Sounds good. Mike, you picked to go first in this head-to-head battle. Most of my competitors have chosen to delay to get that 2nd and 2. So I get to see where you're going, then I get to shape my team. Why don't you tell everybody who you're picking and why?
Okay, so first of all, what's your record, Smiz?
I don't know. I think I'm like 6-3 or 5-3, somewhere in there. I've won more than I've lost.
Record. So my first look at this week, like using the DR projections, is tough week for a cage match because we've got a lot of similar values and a whole ton of outlier guys. So given that, I figured I have to go very on brand. I've been converted to the Church of Patrick, and I'm going to take our Laird and Savior, Patrick Laird, at $4,100. Give him the cheap running back who catches passes. It's going to give me a lot of flexibility and on brand for Davis Maddock and Peter Overset. They've converted me.
I've heard that I have not listened to the podcast yet, the latest episode of the Takecast, but I've heard it was a very good episode. Our chat here at twitch.tv was saying it was great. So Laird, the #1 pick off the board.
Yeah, I bet he hasn't heard that before.
I mean, maybe. He might be the best player in the history of his high school.
That's true.
Right?
Fair enough.
All right. So Patrick Laird, #1 overall, taking a value play. I had him in first look this week. I don't know if he's going to remain there, by the time the week is over or anything else like that. Like, he's a good value for sure, but like we may get some other value that pops on this slate as we get down the, as the week goes on with somebody like Dalvin Cook, who says he's going to play, but if he doesn't, then Madison becomes like the top running back value. But it's Wednesday and we can't pick that right now.
Yeah, there's a couple guys like that.
Yes, exactly.
Greg Olsen and Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this week's definitely going to hinge on that. I feel like stuff's tight right now, so that's going to change things a lot.
I don't disagree. So I'm going to take a couple of players here that I think are good values. Number one, let's see. Number one, I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara. Now, I know that it's dangerous to play against San Francisco. San Francisco is an excellent defense, an amazing defense. They've done a fantastic job this year. However, we've made a little bit of bacon a couple of the last few weeks going with good running backs who have massive usage in the passing game, who don't rely on getting fed a ton on the ground because they're so used in the passing game. We did it last week with Leonard Fournette, and he came in at like 7.5% ownership in the Millionaire Maker against the Buccaneers. We also did the same thing with Alvin Kamara back in week 11, going up against those same Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are reverse funnel, who are really tough against opposing running backs. But when you have running backs that are getting 8, 9, 10, 12 targets a week, and I'm never really expecting more than 15 carries from an Alvin Kamara anyway, I'm basically getting a wide receiver one with ground upside here. If he can kind of bust one, he has not gotten a lot of touchdowns this year, but he can reach value and pay off this salary on volume alone at 7K, as his price has come down from where it usually resides in the 8 to 8,400 range. He's only 7K this week. So I'm going to take Kamara with the first pick, and I'm going to attack kind of a bad defense with the second pick. I just mentioned Jacksonville with Leonard Fournette. Only 6,400 is Melvin Gordon III. He is right at a perfect price for me, considering that he's, in my opinion, should get 20 to 25 touches against Jacksonville's defense. It's allowed over 200 yards rushing in a game 4 separate times this year. Yes, Austin Eckler is there and is a very good player who I respect very much, but does not get the volume right now. And talent doesn't always trump everything when it comes to fantasy, especially daily fantasy. Volume does. So give me the 20 plus touches at 6,400. I'm going to lock in these two mid-range value guys, and then see where you go. I like the start for me here, and we're going to head right back to you with Patrick LAIRD and who else?
I'll tell you what, chat doesn't seem very optimistic about my chances with the Patrick LAIRD first overall pick here. So I was kind of hoping you would let Kamara slip through the cracks because of the matchup. So was disappointed to hear you take him overall. This is where I'm struggling. So you've got 2 running backs already. I feel like it's kind of crowded there. Don't think, let me see. I might be trying to game theory this a little bit too much, Smiz.
No, go for it. Talk your way through it. This is what makes this video so good every week.
So you've got Kamara. I'm trying to figure out your ability to pay up for Christian McCaffrey a little bit here. So I feel like with LAIRD at 4,100, one of the benefits of that is flexibility to get up to McCaffrey and give me that really high floor. But I also don't want to burn that pick super early if that's not the direction that you're headed. So, and I also think there's a lot in terms of mid-high tier receivers. I think it's way too early to go to onesie position, just not necessary. So those are sort of the dynamics that I'm walking through. But the guy that pops in our Daily Roto Vanilla Optimals the most early on, and this does conflict a little bit with giving me flexibility to pay for McCaffrey, but Davante Adams at 8K is going to be my pick. I know it's tough to take a really expensive wide receiver in a head-to-head format because there's a bit more variance volatility, but you look at the super high team total for them, 27 at home against a really bad Washington team, and Davante Adams is a guy that his share of receiving touchdowns is really high, like even relative to his regular target share. We have him with 38% share of the receiving touchdowns for Green Bay. So going to go with Davante Adams.
All right. Makes sense. Really came through last week, was massively underpriced, right? Like just they dropped his price to 7,000. Everybody jumped all over it. We know how many touchdowns he can score in this offense, and Aaron Rodgers, one of his favorite targets for the last couple of years. And he's been an improving player too. So like we talk about regression positively towards the mean. He's somebody who's actually seen progression as a player and become a better player to put himself in a better spot to win consistently. I could look at a tight end here. I could look at a wide receiver here. I'm not going to lock up my flex. I never really do that. It's not kind of my style.
All right. Well, that's good to know.
I mean, I like to give myself that flexibility, right? So like,
Yeah.
like just in case something breaks down, I might be able to get there later. I think that there's enough of one thing, but not enough of another. And the thing that I don't think there's enough of is this price range right around here. And for me, Jamison Crowder is somebody who has stood out all offseason and in most of the games where Sam Darnold has been healthy. He gets a fantastic matchup here against Miami. Only caught 2 of his 9 targets last week. I think that that's going to kind of change and regulate itself back. He had 3 straight games with a touchdown just a few weeks ago, all against really bad defenses against the pass, Washington, the Giants, and Miami. That 7 to 10 target range is kind of where I'm putting him this week. And at 5,300, he can easily pay off that salary or show me a return on that salary with volume alone. And if he happens to wander into the end zone, then it's going to be an absolute smash. So for 5,300, I'm going to take Jamison Crowder here. And I'm going to see where you go, and that could dictate where I go next. It's kind of like I'm checking it back to you with Jamison Crowder.
Yep. Yeah, there was one guy in that range. I had Crowder and another receiver in that range that I'm looking at.
It's Cole Beasley, isn't it? Because you're a Buffalo homer.
I am a Buffalo homer. It's not Cole Beasley. I was looking. I don't think I'm gonna go here yet. I was looking at Deontay Johnson a little bit. Him and Jamison Crowder as the cheap receivers. I know James Washington getting a lot of hype, but Deontay Johnson, same amount of targets last 2 weeks, 4,300 against Arizona. That's pretty nice play. I'm gonna actually go. You know, because I'm a masochist and this play burned me big time last week, I'm going to go back to the other side of that game.
Okay.
And give me, Christian Kirk, 5,200 at home. We're expecting him 25% of the targets, really high pass rate for Arizona. I know they were god awful last week, but they've been, you know, decently successful offensively with Kyler Murray this year. And it's a somewhat fantasy friendly offense in terms of the pass run tilt. And I don't think that will change against Pittsburgh this week. So I'm going to go Christian Kirk. And I think this allows me to, I still have the flexibility to go expensive third wide receiver, cheap third wide receiver, depending on what I want to do at RB2.
Fair enough. Christian Kirk plugged in your line. We got Patrick Laird, Davante Adams, and Christian Kirk. I thought you were about to take my guy. Little sneak peek on Best Buys here, but you talked about him already. And in that matchup, Deontay Johnson getting enough targets to win, and he's going up against Arizona, who has allowed the second most Draftkings points to opposing wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. They've been very giving to everything on Draftkings, really. Quarterbacks, running backs.
Chart take
I didn't say that I wasn't. I didn't say that I wasn't going to do that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
See, options are open. But Deontay Johnson represents a really good value here, who's getting a good amount of targets against a team that can't really stop anything. And the Steelers are going to be playing up in pace here. Something else that I always look to, teams that are going to be playing extra snaps, teams that are playing up in pace to give them more opportunities, as well as playing up in efficiency like they should, even with, you know, Duck Dynasty at quarterback. Deontay Johnson at 4,300 opens up a lot of value for me, and has a good enough floor that there aren't very many paths to absolute failure here to allow me to spend up on other players that I really want.
Okay. I'm a little disappointed in myself.
You're a little shook.
Maybe I should have just pulled the trigger and taken the cap relief here. I'm also like, I'm trying to zone in on what you're saying, and at the same time, like, mess around with combinations. So you have to keep your screen.
Yeah,
like,
see, you've
clean.
got the
I'm
advantage. You've got,
so
this
I've got an edge
is
here. I'm
like,
like
everybody says I got the
around.
home field advantage, but like, I'm at a disadvantage because I've got to be the host, I've got to be the producer, I've got to be the director, I've got to be all these things. You get to kind of mess around and see where things fit on your team.
Yeah.
I don't get that luxury. So why don't you talk everybody through here your fourth pick, and then I can put you on the full screen, and then I can start messing around with my team a little bit.
Okay. Fourth pick here. So I think like the big decision for me is if I want to pay up for a third receiver, even like mid-tier, like Odell Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins, we have as a top 5 value this week, or do I want to take those really safe running back points from Christian McCaffrey and lock those in? And I think what I'm going to do now, you know, with your last 2 picks going somewhat cheaper at wide receiver, I think you technically could fit in McCaffrey still if you wanted to. I could be mistaken, but especially with the Deontay Johnson pick, I'm going to go ahead and take McCaffrey now, and I'm going to plan to build around him moving forward.
The ballsy pick. I like it. Christian
It
McCaffrey
does
is a
remove
stud.
it does like kind of take the third expensive receiver completely off the board though, which lets you, not only does it give you those guys, but it also lets you plan on taking those guys when you want to. So that was kind of the drawback of the McCaffrey pick. But
Chat's always waiting to see who takes Christian McCaffrey because of what he forces you into. So like, which team's going to take him? Who's got space for him? I mean, look, he had his worst game of the season last week and he had 17.5 points. And, when you're picking a head-to-head game on Wednesday, you're looking to lock in as many guys that are sure things as possible. And when you don't know what other value is going to be out there, like chat's like, really? CMC is ballsy? Yeah, CMC is ballsy when you don't have your pick of every value play on the board. You could end up with a couple of really thin spots by the end of the draft. So I like the pick. Obviously, you had some salary left with Patrick LAIRD as your number one running back. You have 4,480 remaining for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, including a defense where we can always look to save some money. So I don't dislike the pick. There were ways that I could get to Christian McCaffrey. There were certainly ways that I could get to Christian McCaffrey.
It wasn't easy, but it could have been done.
Exactly. Like I would have had to sacrifice here or there, but it's definitely not something that was out of the realm of possibility. For me, when I've been attacking, now here's really the question for me. Mike Williams has had all the opportunity, has had all the air yards, has had all the end zone and red zone looks, and really hasn't done much with them. Right? We just haven't seen him do very much with him. I think he's a very good talent. I think he's a very good player, but we haven't seen him cash that in. And I think he might, but I want to take somebody, in my opinion, that might have a little bit of a higher floor, especially considering the matchup. Even though he's a couple hundred more expensive, somebody like Curtis Samuel at 4,900, seeing over 20% of the overall targets for Carolina and over 20% of the red zone looks from Carolina is still too cheap for me at 4,900, down from his peak of 54 and 53. I'm not touchdown chasing this from last week. Curtis Samuel has been somebody that I've been basically hammering into tournament lineups all season long. We have the upside as he is somebody who's been missed more than basically everybody but like 3 wide receivers on deep throws this year. So he has that big playability, but also has a solid floor based on the amount of targets that he gets week in, week out in this offense. Nobody can really stop Christian McCaffrey, but Curtis Samuel does get fed to, especially when they get around the red zone. And you also have the second guy on this team who gets a ton of red zone looks in Greg Olsen, who might miss this week, possibly bumping Curtis Samuel's red zone usage a little bit. So give me Curtis Samuel at 4,900. I've got 5,500 remaining for my 4 remaining spots, including a defense.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I know early in the year, for season long, we were at Roto Experts really heavy on DJ Moore, like even more so than Curtis Samuel. So I am a little bit happy to see DJ Moore priced at 7K in week 14 and Curtis Samuel at 4,900. But when you're getting that big discount, it makes sense to take it in a dome game that could get up and down a little bit. I hope so. Back to you. I'm struggling here. I'm kicking myself over Deontay Johnson as I look at the other receivers like in that low 4K range, and I'm kind of cornered. But I think it's just going to change my strategy at quarterback, where I'm going to have to go like cheaper quarterback and not take the big time upside at quarterback, because it's either that or I take some real gambles at sub 4K in terms of the targets guys are going to see. And I don't think that I want to do that. So I'm going to just hold off on that decision, I think, as much as possible, the third receiver decision.
Makes sense.
So that's going to bring me over to tight end, where I feel I definitely have to go a bit cheaper at tight end, given the way that I've constructed. And there's one guy that I feel better about than the rest. And not a great game last week for Noah Fant, had 3 targets. But if you look at his target share the last X weeks or whatever, it's really sort of condensed there for Denver. His last 4 games, 21% target share. I know it's a risky offense to invest in, but volume over quality, especially at a fragile position like tight end. So I'm going to take Noah Fant and clear up some cap space.
Is it Font or Fant?
You are not asking the pronunciation king.
I'm asking the wrong guy if it comes to correct pronunciation.
Me and Pacheco aren't the guys to ask.
No, never ask Poplinko.
Drew,
right?
You can ask Drew.
Drew would know.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'm going to say sometimes
Noah Fant.
I just say it slightly differently every time I say it.
That one of these times you're right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like everything between Fant and Font, I just and anything in between, I just tweak that A just a little bit each time.
I'm on board with that. I think there are two plays. And this might shock some people. I've been the advocate of the flow chart all year. I've been the guy that said you just kind of stream tight ends against Arizona. And for the most part, we have, except for that 1 week that we said don't do it, which was against Cincinnati the first time. And I think Vance McDonald is in play this week, but I'm not as thrilled to play him because of how aggressive DraftKings has become, matching players up with the matchups that they have, matching their salary to the matchups that they have. So they've aggressively priced up Vance McDonald to $4,300 for week 14 when he's in really no better than a $3,300 or a $3,500 tight end. But you're going to have to pay a premium just because he's matched up against Arizona. Now, on the other side of things, we have two other tight ends at this price. We have Mike Gesicki, who has started to come into his own, getting a ton of volume, getting a whole lot of looks, starting to play into his athleticism for $300 less. Or I can go with Jack Doyle against the second worst team matchup wise against opposing tight ends. Tampa Bay has not been able to stop anybody from catching the ball pretty much all season long, whether it's been a wide receiver or a tight end. We've been streaming both against them as often as we possibly can. And with the injuries that they've sustained, with Eric Ebron taking the rest of the season off and sitting on the coast of Bora Bora, and T.Y. Hilton as banged up as he is, Jack Doyle saw a massive amount of targets last week, and I don't think that that's going to change moving forward. I'm not projecting 11 targets for Jack Doyle week in and week out, but a floor of 6 or 7 does seem very reasonable with a ceiling of somewhere like 11 or 12. So if I'm going to spend in this mid-4 range, I'd much rather spend for Jack Doyle against the second worst team against opposing tight ends than pay $4,300 for somebody who has a target floor of 1 and maybe a ceiling of 6 or 7 based on the amount of snaps that he plays and routes that he runs. So I'm prioritizing Jack Doyle this week at $4,600. That's what I'm going to take. I still have a quarterback, a flex, and a defense to go, and plenty of money that I can spend to get there.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick. I think if I didn't make the McCaffrey pick, I would have been more on Doyle, Gesicki, even Hunter Henry, possibly.
Hunter Henry's very good this week too, yeah.
But I needed to go as bottom of the barrel without being like complete trash as I could.
Of course.
So that's where I did with Noah Fant. Now I've been doing some math while you were going through that, trying to do some math here.
You are firmly on team math. By the way, for anybody who's wondering,
I'm trying to see this wide receiver spot because it's tricky sub 5K or even sub 5,500. There aren't a ton of options, and I'm trying to figure out, can I afford to get up to like a $6,000 option, or do I need to bite the bullet on something? So it's kind of like Robbie Anderson there at 5,100 is like my middle of the pack target. The really cheap targets is someone like, Corey Davis types that you just don't want to, you just don't feel good about whatsoever. As good as Tannehill has been, the targets for Corey Davis have been horrible. Or do I continue? And I think I'm going to go with the theme of masochism and taking guys that have burned me. And I'm going to eschew Robbie Anderson, eschew the cheap receiver. I'm going to figure out a cheap quarterback to make this work. And I'm going to go with Odell Beckham at $6,300.
Odell Beckham Jr. has been an enigma wrapped in a riddle shrouded in mystery all season long. We haven't really seen him have a big week outside of the one week 12 against Miami, but everybody has a big week against Miami. And I've wanted to play him because I believe in the talent. But like, at what point do we think that the talent is not matching up with the opportunity in the scheme? Because I believe in the talent in him. I believe in Baker's talent, even though he's not playing up to it this year. What's different about Beckham this week?
Yeah, I don't know if there is so much different as much as you're just hoping that breakthrough
Just
finally
please,
comes. I think,
please.
yeah, but the matchup against Cincinnati is pretty good. I mean, you're
It is.
facing an inferior opponent, whereas last week I played Beckham a lot in tournaments at really low ownership against Pittsburgh, and it was more of a game theory type play where I know Pittsburgh has a good defense, but no one's going to play this guy with this huge talent, 6,300. Whereas this week against Cincinnati, you're talking about a team total in the mid 20s. That's pretty strong. In terms of defensive DVOA for Cincinnati, they're 30th, 31st against the pass. So you're feeling pretty good about that. And I think just hoping the talent wins out, though. Like, as much as our projections are math oriented, you have some priors on stuff in terms of the talent and the skill level and how that translates to certain volume expectations and efficiency expectations. I was talking to someone the other day, though. Would you have ever imagined Odell Beckham would have this stat line in week 14 in which neither he nor Baker were hurt? No one got hurt.
No, not in any of the multiverses that are possibly out there.
Like, what percentile outcome for a non-injury situation is this? Like, third?
It's awful. Yeah, like, and again, Freddie, please just hand over the play sheet, because you're clearly not able to do things.
First time head coach. You think, you've hired this offensive coordinator who had Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick leading the league in yards per attempt. Let him do his thing.
Yeah.
Take something off your plate. Win-win.
Right? And with as much talent as they have now, you can't say, well, we don't have the talent, or defenses have adjusted. There's been bad play calling throughout, and then you could argue all the off the field stuff too. Oh, they're more worried about this, the anecdotal stuff. But like, this has been awful. And maybe it just comes down to the offensive line isn't as good, right? Or the offensive line issues are what's causing all of this. But like, I don't want to blame 5 guys for the other 5 guys not being able to do stuff, and the coaching staff not being able to put their stuff together either.
Yeah, I mean, good offenses generally can work around the offensive line a little bit, unless it's just absolutely
god awful. I mean, look how many yards Atlanta's got a bad offensive line too, right? And look how many yards and touchdowns Matt Ryan has thrown for this year. So offensive line, as bad as they've been, there's been some games where they've gotten blown up too. But there's also been a lot of games that they've been competitive and done very well in their passing game, and we haven't seen that from Cleveland this year for one reason or another. And it's probably not just one thing. It's never just one thing, right? It's some combination of 5 or 6 things that are all out there. So I think we probably touched on just about all of them. So you've got 4,200 remaining, 12-7 in total, 4,233 on average for a quarterback, a flex, and a defense. The defense will obviously make that rise. Kind of a feeling where I think you're going with this, and I kind of have a feeling where I don't think you can go, which frees me up to kind of make a choice here on whether I want, the question is, can I afford Derrick Henry? Like, if I put in Derrick Henry, how cheap do I have to go on defense? I could go pretty cheap on defense. I mean, I could do some things.
It's a cheap D work.
It is a cheap D week. That's true.
Like, I'm not even really afraid of you blocking me at D. I feel like there's a couple.
There's enough that you could just throw it and have it stick. So you know what? I'm gonna go with Derrick Henry here. Going up against Oakland, they've been a better defense on the whole season than they have versus running backs on the last 4. And Derrick Henry, whatever anecdotal stuff you want to throw out there about, well, he's a big running back and he's fast, he's a big bowling ball, and everybody's hurt and tired at this point in time. So this is why he thrives during the late season, because he's fresh. I care about the volume more than anything else. And it's just clear that it's 100% there. 29 touches last week, 20 the week before, 25 against KC, 16 against Carolina, with 27, 32, 36, 24.9. He doesn't have the floor, in my opinion, that a guy like Leonard Fournette or a guy like Christian McCaffrey, or these guys who catch the ball, Kamara, who catch the ball 10 times a game, bring to the table every single week. He's got to get himself into the end zone. He's got to get 100 yards rushing for me to reach value, because he's not going to get more than 2 or 3 targets in a week. But I think that he could get there against Oakland. As Tennessee, I expect to be playing from ahead in this game. personally, and I think that he's got another chance to have another 100-yard game here, and he's going to get every carry inside the 5, which are the biggest predictors of future touchdown runs. So I'm going to take a chance here, go with Derrick Henry, kind of a player that's out of the normal scheme that I go with, leaving me with 9,300 left to play with for a defense and a quarterback, and we'll see which ones I can go with.
So you have 9,300 left for a
9,300 left for a defense and a QB.
Okay, I've got the math wheel spinning again, Smith.
Go for it.
So I don't think, well, obviously the flex I don't have to worry about. You've got that locked up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm between quarterback and defense, and it's a matter of,
I don't even think we're fighting for the same guys.
Yeah, I don't at quarterback, I'm like, we're not fighting for the same guy at quarterback for sure. And I'm a little nervous because I feel like for what I want to do, there's really only one guy that fits. But you're not going to take him. It's just not going to happen. All right, so I'm going to go at defense. I think this is the order of operations that makes the most sense. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers home versus a Colts team that's just dealing with so many injuries offensively. $2,300. That's where I'm going to go.
They've been real good the last 2 weeks.
Both sides of that game, I think, are good too. But the specific instruction I have worked out, really that extra $100 taking Tampa Bay instead of the Colts side of things works out. And I think the Colts might have a little bit more upside in terms of Jameis just doing Jameis things.
Yeah, just playing against Jameis is all you have to say.
Yeah. But they have, I think the floor is a little bit worse in terms of points scored. Not that the points scored matter that much. It's something we've been over with defenses. I mean, you want opportunities for sacks, you want opportunities for big plays. Points scored really doesn't matter too much. With that said, Tampa Bay at home against a Colts team that's just banged up, and they're cheap. They're cheap. So give me Buccaneers.
Look, the Bucs have been real good with 11 sacks the last 2 weeks total too, and quarterback pressure is the greatest predictor of turnovers and touchdown scoring. Finding ways to break a slate with a defense, you're looking for defenses that can get pressure on the opposing quarterback. So the Buccaneers have been getting that in spades the last 2 weeks. I've got a defense and a quarterback left, Mike.
Yeah, I think you're going to get the quarterback that I wanted to take.
I mean, there's a few ways that I could go with this, depending on what I really want to do. I could go with Aaron Rodgers. I could go with Kirk Cousins. I could go with Patrick Mahomes, but he's playing against New England. I could completely punt defense. Right?
Yeah, and go Lamar.
I could go Lamar, and I've done this before, just to kind of twist the knife a little bit. They are playing your Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Will you be in attendance?
I will not be in attendance. It's hard to go to the 1:00 games.
True. Yeah. That makes sense with our job being what they are. Yeah.
I'm generally working up till 1 on the subscriber alerts for Daily Roto. I wish the Bills had won early enough. If the Thanksgiving Day game win over Dallas had occurred like the week before, they might have had time to flex this game, but it was too late for them to flex it. I'm not sure, what is this Sunday night game anyways?
I forget off the top of my head. I don't have my book down here.
Yeah,
I'm like a CPA. I can't remember anything other than what I'm doing right now.
Not in the main slate.
Yeah, it's not on the main
slate.
Why did you ask me that? I'm not doing a video for Sunday Night Football. I don't care about that game. Other than just being a fan and watching it and an analyst. I have to know what
I will pick on you a little bit, though. I was pretty happy you took Derrick Henry.
Okay.
I'm going to say, 8,300.
Tell me why.
So $8,200. I like taking Derrick Henry in GPPs every week when he's in the 7K-ish range and people aren't going to play him. I think he's a highly volatile player.
Agree.
It's one of those players where I think it's almost as simple as when people don't play him, play him. When people play him, don't play him. Now, that didn't work out a couple weeks ago against Jacksonville when he was chalk and smashed, but it's worked out pretty well for the course of the season. You're paying peak price for a guy who doesn't catch passes. I just see more ways it goes wrong than not. I feel like you had an edge in the cage match, and you threw it back to me a little bit. Granted, where you were in your salary spot, I don't know if there were a ton of other options.
The other option for me that I was thinking about when you were making your pick was to go with somebody like Fournette. And that's why I mentioned him at 400 cheaper. But really all that would do is just let me spend a little bit more on a defense. And then
so that's what it comes down to is, I guess, like,
And then I'd have
But
two
points per
running backs
dollar, I
from the
think it
same
wasn't the
game
best
with Gordon
play.
and Fournette. No, points per dollar, it's not the best play.
But where you were, and this is where the cage match comes into things. It's not perfect.
A little different than building an optimal cash game lineup.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
But I think I've got a chance to get 65 to 75 touches out of my 3 running backs. And in a cage match, I think that's always a pretty good strategy to go with. I've got solid targets for all 3 of my wide receivers and my tight end. And I'm going to pull the best quarterback in the league in terms of fantasy production, maybe the best quarterback, and very possibly the best player in terms of fantasy production over the course of a full season in Lamar Jackson. I'm going to make you sweat while you watch this Buffalo game in 2 different ways, because I know that you're going to be nervous with Buffalo playing Baltimore in such a high profile matchup, but now you've got to worry about every time Lamar scores, you're going to be clicking on that DraftKings screen to worry about what happens in the cage match. How many points does Smiz have right now? Oh God, Lamar Jackson's got another 30-point fantasy day. What am I going to do? Help me, Micah.
The cage match is getting to me, Smiz. I don't think I was fully prepared for it.
I'm telling you, I can get to you on a molecular level, Michael.
I'm really kicking myself over Diontae Johnson still, because where I would want to go is Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I think he's a little bit underpriced this week. Yeah. You get that high end upside, and I don't think my team would look that much different with Diontae Johnson at wide receiver over one of the mid-tier guys I have. So the KIRK over Diontae Johnson was definitely a mistake in retrospect. So this backs me into a corner in terms of, and there's a running back value. Like I said, there's not a lot in the 5K range this week, but there's one guy I really like in DEVONTA Freeman, who I'm going to take. And he got banged up in that New Orleans game before he missed the 2 weeks. But if you look at how they were using him, with Ito Smith out, Brian Hill just really not getting it done, he's sort of like quietly a workhorse back here in the low 5,000s at home dome game. So week 8 against Seattle, he had 8 targets, 13 carries. If you look at the actual carry share, they've been much better. They just haven't run the ball a whole ton. Last week, coming back against New Orleans, 5 targets, 17 carries. I feel like this is a guy that can get you 20 opportunities between targets and carries at 5K at home. I'm going to go with Devonta Freeman.
And you have 5K left. Why don't you take your QB here?
Yeah, this is the most boring pick of all time, but Derek Carr is really, I think, my only realistic option remaining.
Jesse Pinkman himself.
Huh?
Jesse Pinkman himself.
We had Dwayne Haskins available. Not feeling that. Even David Blau is more expensive than Derek Carr. They don't have much for you to do in terms of cheap quarterbacks, but we have we have him for 1.6 passing touchdowns on the week. Nothing spectacular, but enough volume, okay, enough quality. I'm not going to build this up as this really sharp play that I think it is. I just think he's clearly the best of the remaining options that I have, which is very little. And there were a couple cheaper players I could have gone with at flex, but I just didn't feel like getting up to, even Minshew in the low 5Ks. I just didn't think it really gave me much. So Derek Carr is going to round out my roster, and let's see how you finish things out.
So you got Carr, LAIRD, McCaffrey, Devontae Adams, Christian Kirk, Odell Beckham Jr. You paid up big at wide receiver, 3 superstar wide receivers, Noah Fant, Devonta Freeman, and the Buccaneers defense. Coming back to my team, I've got 1,900. There's really nothing else that I can do. I have 2 different teams to choose from. Either the Lions against Minnesota at Minnesota or Washington at Green Bay. I could flip a coin here. You want to pick my defense? It really doesn't matter to me which one of these 2 that I have. So I'm gonna take the Lions D here. And
no, it's not much of a difference.
It doesn't matter.
If a quarterback was to do something dumb and throw a pick 6, is it going to be Kirk Cousins or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers?
I would assume that it's going to be Kirk Cousins over Rodgers, but that doesn't mean it always happens that way. But I'll take the Lions defense. Neither one of them is a great option, but I'm willing to punt the defense this week in the cage, with all these other players that I got. I really like Lamar Jackson, Kamara, Gordon, Crowder, Deontay Johnson, Curtis Samuel, Jack Doyle, Derrick Henry, and I got the Lions defense. So Mike, thank you very much for joining me this week on the cage match. Appreciate you being here. Best
Thanks
of luck
for having
to you.
me. I'm definitely going to sweat this. I feel like I could have had Deshaun Watson at quarterback and basically the same team, and I would have felt a lot better. But that eliminates one of my outs in terms of getting lucky at quarterback. I think I'm going to get a ton of receptions out of my 3 running backs, though.
You're going to need to. We're going to see how it works out. Mike, thank you once again. Guys, thank you for watching this video. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know which team you think is going to win and by how many points on Draftkings. And we'll be back next time. So please drop a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you ring that notifications bell. And until that next video, I'll catch you later. Bye.
He's a legend.